Welcome to Twice 5 Miles Radio, fertile ground for conversations worth listening to and remembering. I'm your host, James Navé, always airing first on WPVMLP, Asheville 103.7, streaming online, WPVMFM.org, the voice of Asheville, heard all over the world, and on other community radio stations like KCEI, Cultural Energy Radio, out of Taos, New Mexico. Thank you, Walter Parks, for our theme song. WalterParks.com for more on Walter's music. Devine Dial, thank you for managing WPVM-FM on Wall Street in downtown Asheville. We appreciate it. And Robin Collier, for you, thank you for managing KCEI, Cultural Energy Radio in Taos, New Mexico. If you'd like to reach me, Navé at jamesnavé.com. Navé is spelled N-A-V-E. I would love to hear from you. Today, I have a friend on whom I've known for quite some time. I'm not sure how many years now, Cameron Gregg, and we met through the Leaf Global Arts group many, many years ago. I vaguely recall we sat together at Jennifer Pickering's house watching a Super Bowl game, and we started to chat about acting and performance. And I believe Cameron even told me about Asheville Community Yoga, which is an organization that's still in Asheville. And I started to go to Asheville Community Yoga because of Cameron. And he's talked a great deal to me about all the things he does. And the reason I've invited him on is because he was a guest here a few years ago, maybe 6 years, actually. It's been quite a while. Since we spoke, Cameron has moved to LA and has gotten traction in the LA creative community. So today, this is going to be a catch-up visit with Cameron about what it's like to leave his home in Asheville, go all the way across the country and set up shop in a big city like LA, where there's lots of traffic and lots of talent. Cameron, welcome to Twice 5 Miles Radio.
Oh, Navé, thanks for having me, man. It's always a pleasure. It's always a pleasure to talk with you. I do remember that Super Bowl party, we were sitting across from each other and talking about acting and athletes and the similarities and the differences and the monastic training that takes place in both arenas. And it was a great way to get to know you better. I, of course, from a very young age, digested and was inspired by the slams that you do at Leaf. And some of my first experiences of how to shape language are these talented slam poets whose poems are still burned into my brain. And part of those memories are you introducing each one and getting the scores going. And it was just a very inspiring time. And it always is. And you make my way back to Leaf.
So tell me, when you were young, you said the slam inspired you. For those folks listening who don't know what Cameron's referencing, I've been running the Leaf Festival Poetry Slam since 1995. And it's held every October now. We used to do it twice a year. Now we only do it once a year in October. And we have about 400 people in the audience. It's a big stage show. 12 poets are on the stage and they slam their poems. They compete. And slam means, can you connect emotionally to your piece so well that the audience will stand up and cheer as if they were in a baseball stadium and you just won the World Series with a grand slam home run. It's not about throwing your competitors on the stage and jumping up and down on them. What an image. We don't want to have that, but it is the emotional image. So Cameron, do you remember what age that you recall starting to watch the Leaf Slam? Because I'm really glad to hear that influenced you in your career as an actor and voiceover artist.
Oh, absolutely. I think I was, oh my gosh, what would that first year have been? I think I was like 11 or 12. No. Maybe a little bit later. Maybe a little bit further on in the tween years. I just remember Leaf was the first time I'd always read about arts festivals and how influential and cultural moments that have happened at big music festivals. And I remember thinking that Leaf was this entry into this world that I'd only ever heard about or read about. And the Poetry Slam was a centerpiece of that, something that I wasn't even expecting, something I stumbled into, just to see that level of passion and transcendent use of language, just real stories, people talking about real stories about themselves, or even just shaping their understanding or perception of an idea in such a way that, again, it sticks to me and with me to this day. So I was extraordinarily influenced by it, and it gave me a divining rod for my own sense of authenticity. In things that I've seen since, both on the stage and on the screen and audio presentations, it's really helped steer me and given me an appreciation, especially when I was training over in London. It helped me understand Shakespeare. in a whole different way. I owe so much of my understanding of language to those performances.
Can you say a little more or go a little deeper? And the reason I'm asking is because the Leaf Global Arts, this is 2024, and this year's theme is World Changers. And I'm doing a story slam in the big barn at the Leaf Global Arts retreat in a few weeks. We're calling it the Leaf Global Arts World Changers Story Slam, and our theme is change. And so what we're doing is we're asking people to prepare a 5 to 7 minute true personal story about a time when art inspired them to make changes that influenced or changed the world around them. And art can be anything. It could be a line of poetry somebody says to you. It could be a song you hear on the radio. It could be a painting in a very prominent museum. It could even be a sunrise. If a sunrise isn't art, what is it? Or it could be a transformative view of a city skyline. So however you interpret art, we'd like to hear a story about how it inspired you to make changes that made a difference, and the changes can be small or large. So that's what we're doing at the Leaf Global Arts Story Slam. That's the brief. So Cameron, a good example of how art inspires someone. You've already told us you were inspired in your teenage years by the Poetry Slam. And because of the Poetry Slam, it helped you make changes in your own life that now are rippling out in the acting community in LA. So that's a perfect example of how art inspires, causes change, and then makes someone like you take action that expands out and out and out. And as for you, it's expanded into an entire career. So go deeper into the idea of how it taught you to be more authentic, and how did that help you get into Shakespeare? Because a lot of people, when they think of the Poetry Slam, they think of, oh, these are just a bunch of folks up on the stage yelling at each other. It's much more than that. Authenticity, how did that work for you? And when you were young, how did it play out? How did you start implementing it and experimenting?
It forced me to re-examine how I was communicating with people and also showing up for what I believed in and my own value system. Even these days, I have to remind myself, am I living my values? Not just in theory, but in every interaction that I have. Am I truly being a person that I'm proud of? It's because these ideas and people's personal experiences being expressed in such a beautifully poetic way and just a raw, real way. Some of these ideas are transcendent. Some of them are universal, like oppression and the experience of the minority in the world of the majority, and how to stand up and do something that's difficult in the face of adversity. Like these themes, and also these themes run through a lot of Shakespeare's works too. And I know a lot of people would say Shakespeare wrote in such elevated language that doesn't seem very direct in terms of being able to understand it, but the experiences that the characters in his plays are going through, when you really dissect that language and look at where they're coming from and what they're forced to do and what they feel they must do, those do then, I believe, cross over into that realm of the universal.
So as you developed your acting skills, what are some of the steps that you took, and what are some of the obstacles you had to overcome to get yourself up to the place where you felt like you could offer your skills to the professional world?
There are personal difficulties built in, both in holding oneself to a discipline and a seriousness of purpose to truly grow and not just tell yourself things that you want to hear, because the proof's in the pudding. And there's also practical difficulties of just coming into a new city that's already a well-oiled machine and is totally fine without you. Personally, I've discovered a lot more of who I am just in the process of coming here and in remaining in acting classes. And there's so much art and culture here. And there's so many incredibly gifted artists who live here and have made contributions to the soul of this country and to culture at large. And art can be instructive, even though it doesn't have to be. I've really just come here and tried to immerse myself in it as much as I can, and also really tested my own sense of what progress means. There are ups and downs. The life of an actor at first, especially trying to get going, is difficult. In a lot of cases, it's celebrating the little wins, the plays, the passion projects, the multimedia arts exhibitions and avant-garde performances. I try to keep myself busy and my fingers in a lot of different pies creatively. And one of my side projects that I do with some friends from undergrad at Rutgers, I do this thing called the 1-1 Project, which is a lot of fun. And I sit on their executive board and they call me the Chief of Integration, articulation, and onboarding, meaning I also like welcome new people into the project. So I like to say that one of the unique things I have to bring to the table is that I'm engaging and I try to get along with everybody and I try to do my best every time.
So say more about the 1-1 project. You stopped by to see me in Taos, where I am now, and you're in LA. You were here a couple of weeks ago, and you were talking about the 1-1 project. And I'd like to ask you to explain a bit more, framing it around all of the work one has to do to develop talent to the point where you have a range you can offer the world. You go to a movie set, you have to behave a certain way. You have to deliver a certain kind of performance. You go to a play, it's a different thing. You do a podcast, it's a different thing. You do a voiceover job, it's very different. So how does this it's called 1-1 or one-on-one?
A 1-1, yeah,
1-1.
The 1-1 project. And in some ways, it's, we started developing it in the early days of the pandemic with one of my former teachers and still mentors, Kevin Kittle. He is the visionary behind this. And a lot of his former students from the various places he's taught have come together because we believe in this. We believe in this new form of theatrical performance that's very direct. People watch it and they're like, wow, I just saw two humans live out an entire lifetime of a relationship in about 20 to 40 minutes. It's really stunning and beautiful and universal. I can talk more about the specifics of it too, but it's an experience of what we call like total theater, because what starts as a simple interaction between two people becomes a full-fledged moving scenery, clothing flying in and scarves on people and chairs moving and sculptures being created. And all through the course of this, there is a through line happening. There is a story unfolding in real time from the collective unconscious. It's a lot of fun.
How does it work? If I wanted to do it, or someone listening is now curious, thinking, gosh, that sounds kind of interesting, but 1 + 1 = 2, 2 and 2 is 4. How do you get actors to put that together so that an audience will lean into this new form of exploration?
Well, it's interesting. It started as an expansion of this Meisner technique of acting, where you have two actors across from each other repeating back and forth to each other. Kevin was, well, wait a minute. What if we took the onus off of the actors to have to name their own experience that they're having, and a third person were at play, and they could see what was happening and unfolding between both people? And what if, instead of starting with just a statement that the player has to come up with about what's going on, either between them or within them, what if we just had them repeat numbers back and forth to each other? So it begins with two people in chairs sitting across from each other, repeating 1 back and forth to each other, until the experience shifts, and it could shift in any way. It could exhaust itself. It could peter out. It could, all that needs to happen is that it shifts from one thing to another. And when that happens, one of the players then says 2, 2, 2, and they repeat that back and forth to each other. And again, they're repeating the word back and forth, but they're really in touch with each other. There's something unfolding between them that they have to be so attentive and alert and open in order for this first phase of the thing to pop, right? And then after a certain point, after they've been doing numbers, that third person sitting there is picking up on the interaction happening between them, this emotional story that's unfolding. And they throw in, and it can be elevated, it can be poetic. It's framed in a way that a sentence that one person is then going to say over to the other, and he'll say their name, and it'll be like, so-and-so, you are this. It is now not a number. It is now what we call a feed coming out of their mouth from this third person who we call the God Mike. It then becomes this blossoming between three people, right? And then from there, sometimes if it's really going well, that's when other members of the company fly in, things happen, people are lifted on shoulders and screens come across the space. But it has to be going a certain way, and all of the cylinders have to be firing for that phase to then kick in.
So what's the difference between this and what many people know regarding improv?
There's not a lot. I guess it just depends on if you're talking about improv as a genre of performance or just the nature of being improvisational, right? We liken what we're doing a lot to jazz or jamming in rock and roll. because this is happening in real time and no one knows where it's going to go next. It requires such deep listening, Kevin describes as the intensely universal that lives inside of every human being, only we forget that because of modern polite society. We forget that because of convention. We sometimes don't have the means to express that, and this exercise is meant to like tear the lid off that, and these things that live in every person just come out in their full splendor. And when that happens, the only container to view that through then is something that morphs into the physical space. Or music will come on, or someone will get on the piano and start playing something, or a person will come in with a guitar. I sit on Zoom for most of these. I'm the only member of the company in California. Everyone else is based in New York. But sometimes when I see an exercise blossoming like this, I'll even share my sound from my computer and I'll pipe in a piece of music that'll then echo through the space. At least from Zoom, because everyone's in person except for me. That's usually a way that I can contribute if I'm not in New York and not attending one of our sessions in person.
So if you and I were to do this on Zoom, well, we're on Zoom now. I start out by just saying one, and it's almost neutral. It has no value, particularly one.
Nope. Yeah. We try to start at this place called not absolute, perfect zero, meaning not trying to do anything, but also not blocking anything from coming out.
So shall we try it?
I don't know, man. Part of me is like, am I going to get in trouble for doing this from the other members of the?
Maybe we shouldn't try it then.
Yeah, maybe. I would encourage if people are interested in this. We do have an Instagram page. We do have some samples of our work up online, of some isolated moments where it's sprung into existence. It's something we're building, and it's definitely something that's very much right now in the lab. We're still like looking at chemical reactions of different pieces of the puzzle and elements. It's telling us what it wants to be. So what I just described, we've even added some more components to it since that initial iteration of it that I just described.
What I like about this, it's the idea of the listening. And I was thinking as you were talking, listening, when done intently, almost eliminates everything else. So if I'm listening to you, I might have a little bit of my mind going in other directions, but it's not much. 95% of my attention is on the listening part, and then maybe 5% is on something else that's in the background, which is maybe I'm wiggling my rear end around to get my seat fixed, or my muscles are a bit sore. So I'm aware of things. It's the intense listening. And I'm also interested in one because I just recently finished a writer's workshop here in Taos with a group of people, and they came to write. And we did generate a tremendous amount of material from the imaginative storm to the creative form on the page. And in the morning, we had our sessions, more formal. And then in the afternoon, I offered a 2-hour salon. And the 2-hour salon was, well, let's just do whatever we want. We'll talk about whatever we please. So yesterday we did jumps, and it's not 1-1, and yet it's coming from the acting tradition. And the way it worked, everybody wrote a line of dialogue, and then one person picked the line of dialogue up and just said it to the other person. The dialogue was really simple, like, how come I'm driving the car all the time? Or why didn't you feed the cat yesterday? Or what time will we leave for our vacation tomorrow morning? So it seems like the jumps and one-on-one start from an initial impulse. The jumps, a line of dialogue, one-on-one, number one. So a line of dialogue is the seed for the jumps, and number one is the seed for 1-1. Either way, I have a seed. And from the 1-1 point of view, and we don't know what's inside the hull of this seed, it's a mysterious plant. I'm going to plant that seed as one, which would be the word, in the ground. And every time the actors say 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, they discover what the seed contains because they watch it grow. And I would imagine if you extended that metaphor beyond just the little seed growing, eventually, if you had a full-blown 1-1 experience, you'd have an entire fall harvest. So that's a little bit of a different thing than the one line of dialogue.
Oh, sure, but it sounds to me like your use of that repeated idea can generate a lot of different avenues to continue to write or continue to have the imagination sparked.
Yeah, and one of the things I observed with some of the people, they would stay in their character. So one woman was officially, and she was indeed, a therapist. So when she went into her improv, she started to talk like she was a therapist. And I said, well, yes, I know that you're a therapist, but I also, am I mistaken? But I've always known you as a truck driver. Did you go to therapy school while you were driving your truck?
Whole nother portal opening up.
And as people play with it, it becomes more and more interesting. So that's called jumps, and it comes out of the acting classes. So I'll try one with you, Cameron.
Yeah, sure.
Cameron, how come you always leave your pens standing upright in the plants? What's going on with that? I've noticed that every time I come home, you have them standing upright in the house plants. I think it's kind of a little, well, what is it? Why do you do that?
Why do I put my pens upright in the planter containers?
Yeah,
When you come home and you always see that, it confuses you so? And
it does.
why do I do it?
Yeah. Why do you do that?
I do it to create little houses of pen cards the plants can intertwine themselves with and grow up around and in between. And so that when I take them away, they create different forms in the light as they pursue the light at their own pace in their own time.
But how come you don't ever get mad at me for taking them out? Because I often will take them out and use them to write house notes.
Well, it forces me to recreate them again, which then again helps those plants take a new direction in their path toward the sun. And I will say, some of the ones that I really enjoy, the patterns that I've crafted and created, it does irk me sometimes. But then I remember that I haven't gotten groceries in 3 weeks, and your notes are piling up on the refrigerator, and I need those reminders. So.
Well, I've been buying the groceries, I know, for the last 3 weeks. I know that you haven't been getting the groceries, and I don't mind getting them. And I actually don't mind paying for the groceries because I know you're looking for a better job. I mean, you have a job right now, but it's the kind of job that, well, I mean, you don't really like working at the steel mill. I know you don't like those late night shifts, so it's very difficult for you.
I know, especially since the unloading, I mean, it's giving me back problems, unloading all of the beams onto all the transport trucks, and then the other workers that come out and they're just like, be glad you're not in the foundry, or, be glad you're not in the foundry. Like, ugh. And I want to say to them, it's also very hard hauling and lifting the things that you produce in that foundry. So yes, I realize that, and someday I'll graduate from the night shift and be working the day shift, and then maybe one day I won't even need to work at the steel mill anymore. It's those plants and it's your encouragement that helps.
And you are turning 40 next week, and I know that kind of work is hard as the body grows older. Are you noticing anything unusual about all of this hard work that you're doing, and what are you doing about that?
The biggest thing I've noticed is that my recovery time takes a hit. It just takes more time. It takes more time to shift from work mode during the week to play mode on the weekends, and it kind of doesn't make me even want to play as much anymore on the weekends. I don't want to say it's an impediment, because there's also a certain satisfaction in doing physical work and feeling engaged like that. And in addition to the body becoming more and more aware of its fragility, there's also a great strength and resilience in knowing I can still do this. I can still lift these beams and load them onto these trucks, and then they can go out and build the next great city.
And it must be really hard, since you did get your law degree from Yale and practiced for a while when you were in your 20s. I don't know why you gave that up, but do you ever have any regrets around that? Because you're working this hard labor, and you could be earning big bucks at the law firm. What's going on with that?
Well, sometimes I have regrets, but other times I think to myself, what is the impact I'm having on the world? And I remember those days I was having an impact, But it felt like I was only having an impact on people's bottom lines, or helping them save a buck, or helping them screw over someone else. And I started to lose my humanity. So yes, I do regret sometimes maybe not having the same funds or access that I used to have, but in some respects, I'm grateful. I'm grateful that I don't have to live in the billable hour rat race anymore. I'm grateful that there are these decisions that I don't need to make about how I can look at myself in the mirror or sleep at night after the implications of what I've cornered someone into, if I'm being paid to corner them, will have for the rest of their life. I do what I do. I load those beams, I put them on the truck, and off they go. They're going to build something. I don't know what's going to happen in the buildings that they go into, but I'm just one piece. I'm just one piece in the machine, and there's sometimes a comfort in that.
Well, Cameron, I'm glad that you took the time to, say good night before we both go to bed. I know it's late, and you got to get up early tomorrow. So I'm going to hit the sack now, man. And, you do the same. And sweet dreams, brother.
Sounds good. Just make sure to extinguish the lantern next to you. Last time it came dangerously close to falling on the floor. And, well, a burnt down house would not be great either.
Hey, man, thanks for that reminder. I know I was trying to cover that up, but okay, never mind. I'm going to go to bed now. I'll see you tomorrow.
Night, Navé. Do they usually go on that long?
Yeah, sometimes they do.
Oh, that's cool. It's
great. Just amazing. Now, for those of you folks listening out there, I usually do interviews with people that I know. Cameron and I have known each other a long time. I knew I could drop that in. And as you all listened, you may have experienced what I experienced, and what I'm pretty sure, Cameron, you did too. We started out not quite sure where we were going. Pencils upright in house plants. And as I moved further and further into this scene, I bought more and more and more into it, and it became more and more and more believable, authentic, real. And I was like kind of weeping at the end because of your noble effort at the steel factory, man. That was great.
I had no idea. Yeah, I had no idea it was going there either. That was fun.
So everybody listening out there, that's an example of one little thing actors do. And I'm not an actor necessarily, although I've had a lot of experience on the stage and in acting classes. I don't work as an actor like Cameron does. So Cameron, tell us more about your LA life. What are your struggles?
Oh, yeah. I spend a lot of my week doing voice projects. I also stay in class, a weekly class that is quite demanding, which is great because I'm constantly breathing life into a story. I also am constantly auditioning and submitting myself for projects. And also I'm working on creating my own projects in the arena that I seek to work in, which is more film and television. I'm helping develop a few projects right now with a director, writer, filmmaker friend of mine, a neighbor. It's also a challenge when there's so much to do here to remember that my creative voice is valued and there are great ideas and great roles still living within me. Yeah, I mean, that's part of it. That's the thing that nobody tells you when you move out here, is that the best thing you can do is write yourself into a story or collaborate with a friend who believes in you, that can put you in a story. If you have the drive and the passion, you can build your own career from the ground up. That's also what I'm seeking to do, and there's great satisfaction in that too. I'm in the beginning phases of some projects and finished up some of the latter phases of some more projects last year that have been incredibly satisfying. That's just the life. It's great to see on the macro level some of these incredibly influential titles like an Oppenheimer or a Poor Things or a Barbie come to fruition out here, and just be reminded that this is the place that these creatives are inventing these new stories. It's incredibly inspiring It's also incredibly inspiring to go to some of the SAG-AFTRA events and sit in the audience and see some of these filmmakers and some of these actors talk about their work and how they approached certain projects. It's also great to have a community that believes in you out here too. I'm in several communities, one being the one in New York that I was just talking about, that company. Another being the acting studio that I practice at, the Robert DeVonzo studio. There's a great community there that we all lift each other up. Yeah, just previous collaborators in previous projects. Like, I'm still pretty tight with a cast family of people that I did a Fringe show with last year. And you're here to remind each other why you do what you do. And the more you work, the more that leads into it becoming a tapestry, a fabric of different interconnected artists and visionaries and actors and directors and technical personnel and anyone who is behind the camera. Even though I may have come out here a little bit more naive as to the process of how all of this was to unfold, I couldn't be happier now with my broader and greater understanding to be doing the work that it takes for me to be working from where I am. And it's exciting. It's exciting to get up every day and be both in pursuit and to realize that you're already working on things that you care about.
So what I'm understanding, and this is something that I know, luck plays a little bit of a role in this kind of pursuit.
Oh, of course.
It's the hard work, though. It's the discipline. It's the showing up every day. And I know I've kept up with you. We've kept up with each other. I know how hard you've worked, how much focus you put on this, how many things you've had to discover and figure out as you've gone along. This acting school you're going to, or your acting community, can you give us a sense of how an acting class works, what it looks like, and some of the people around you? What are they like? How ambitious are they? How driven are they?
Well, it's interesting. Everyone has their own entree into this particular studio that I'm at. I work with an incredibly talented teacher who's also an actor, writer in his own right, Ryan Mulcahy. And then Robert DeVonzo, the founder of the studio. He is incredibly talented and has put together an incredibly wonderful set of people who he works with and are close to that teach at the studio. The one I'm in right now, it's a scene study class. Every 2 weeks or so, you work on a new piece of material from the canon, either something from the screen or something from the stage. The great thing about studying there is that you get to work on where your weak points are. One of the things that are repeated a lot is find the weak points and then make them your strengths. And there's a lot of freedom and there's a lot of support to be able to explore those things and to be vulnerable and be open about where you could be better. It's great. People come from different backgrounds, different places. There have been a certain number of international actors who've heard about the school who've come in. There are people in my class who are pretty closely tied to the groundlings. Yeah, people come at it from all different places. There are people who are more dedicated than others. Sometimes a couple of people will come in and be like, this isn't for me. Or they don't have time to give it its due, because in order to have meaningful growth, you really do have to put in the work and the time. Yeah, it's a great community because everyone there is supportive of each other. Everyone is simultaneously rooting for each other and themselves to just become the best versions of themselves that they can be, or the best actors they can be. I actually spent a decent amount of time when I first got out here looking for a place like that, where there was that level of both support and also skill and deftness. The people who teach there are incredibly perceptive at identifying what an actor needs to level up. That's another great thing about it.
What would be an example of a weakness, and how would you correct something from your own experience? What was a weakness you brought into it that now has been adjusted so that it's a strength?
Well, it's interesting because one of the main things they teach was at first one of the main things I was struggling with, which is sometimes when you're in the process of performing something, if you are insecure or haven't done the work or aren't there or not present, you could feel the need to resort to doing things that are unnecessary, that you think are helping tell the story, but in actuality are just not necessary, because you're a person experiencing something. You're not a person in a scene doing something. You are that thing. And one of their main pieces of advice that they might as well put above the door is that you are enough. So if you've done the work and you understand and you have a deep empathic connection to this person you're becoming, you've done the work. You are enough. There's nothing more you need to do but just get up there and be there and listen and find yourself in that story.
Somebody not familiar with acting and that term doing the work. Can you unpack that a little bit? What does doing the work mean to you, and how do you engage that idea? How do you do the work?
I mean, it's different for everyone, right? Everyone interprets and perceives the world differently. Everyone has the things that they love and the things that they hate in this world. Or maybe if that language is too strong, there are things that will cause you to run and things that will cause you to run toward as opposed to run away. I work in a way that has to be incredibly personal, and that also required me to learn a lot about who I am, both the ugliness and the beauty of my personhood. Yeah, and then it's a process of really listening to what's really going on in the story. Not just what's being said, but also, and more importantly, what's being done, the actions that are taking place in a given scene. It's an investigative level of looking at every component of a scene, personalizing it, and then just going for it. Once you've been as thorough as you can be, one, in having an objective view of what's objectively happening, and then having the subjective view of how am I personally connecting myself to this. And then once you've done all that work, just, all right, I'm leaving all that behind, and I'm just going to trust that being here, being present to it, will allow me to make choices in the moment with the person I'm with that may even surprise me.
This is interesting for me because I've always done performance. I've been on stage many, many, many years performing poetry and memorized lots and lots and lots of work. My weakness, and I'm curious how the acting class would address this, my weakness comes when I try to memorize material and then I go deeply into it. I mean, the piece I've memorized most thoroughly is A Child's Christmas in Wales by Dylan Thomas, and I can almost recite that thing backwards. Understand that text very well. I've been doing it for years and years and years. And yet, when I'm on a jump like we were doing a few minutes ago, I'm just chattering along like a little magpie. I don't have any self-consciousness. I have no hesitation at all to talk and make all kinds of leaps. And it sounds just like I'm having this conversation like I'm doing right now. Just talk, no problem. When I move into formal text like A Child's Christmas in Wales or a memorized script where I have to do the lines back and forth, I have had poor results in trying to get into that natural flow that I'm having in this moment right now. I'm just me. I'm just talking and not worrying about it. So that would be something that I would love to work on, but I've never been successful at making that little connection. Is that something other people have trouble with as well?
I mean, that just seems like a wing of what I was just talking about with the You Are Enough, right? It's that deep, deep understanding through and through your bones. Look, even though I'm working on or speaking formal text right now, I still don't have to do anything. I still just need to tap into my own effortless understanding of this thing and just be here and not feel like I have to show up and do something just because a camera is on me or just because there's a microphone in my face or just because there are even people watching. I can just bring my unique, authentic understanding to this. Again, referencing this interview is Actors on Actors with Mark Ruffalo and Robert Downey Jr. They're talking about both how much work they do, but then that thing that even they remember doing and do, then all of a sudden a camera's there. And some part of you is, I have to do something. I have to do something. And it's like, no, you don't. You don't have to do anything. You've already done the work. You've already done the work. It is so in you and through with you. That's the key point, though. You have to have sat with it and been with it and related to it and picked it all apart. That's the key. And then trusting.
And the trust part is interesting because when you are on camera or on stage, the audience is there and they're expecting you to actually do something.
Yes.
You can't just sit there like a rock and go two roads diverged in a yellow wood and sorry, I could not travel both. So you're charged with doing something.
I think it's the word you choose. You can do or you can allow. I think it's much more of an allowing.
That was exactly where I was headed.
Oh, yeah. Oh, great.
I was going to say allow this to happen. That's a very difficult thing to do for me. Some people, maybe not so much, but for me, it's very, very difficult to make it not sound. It's like, I can't make it do anything.
Not even make it.
I can't. It's so difficult to realize I don't have to make it do anything at all.
Yeah, because it lives in you.
And that's so counter to our industrial idea of work. Back to this,
Oh, totally.
the
It's all
steel,
about results. It's all about get this tangible thing and you see it and you look at it and you can put it on a shelf or you can put it in a building.
the character you played in Our Jump, where you became so committed to working in the steel factory, loading, 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 you had a greater objective than just going to work. That's why you were able to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's that trust that you're talking about.
That was a lot of fun. No matter what form it takes, I feel like your own subconscious all of a sudden sees an opening into the conscious world and it's like, oh, this is begging to get out. I'm reading this book right now called 4,000 Weeks by Oliver Burkeman. It's about how to spend, in Mary Oliver's words, one wild and precious life and how to do so effectively. That's one thing in the book that he talks about. Specifically in the lawyer example, when that came up, I was like, oh, this is perfect. He talks about how lawyers try to monetize every hour of their time and how when that hour isn't monetized or not used, it's then perceived to be wasted because money wasn't made during it. That's been cooking around in my subconscious lately, just that book and the ideas presented in it. So, yeah, I do feel like sometimes when you improv, those ideas come out. Whatever's kicking around in your subconscious, your imagination, what you find interesting or what's really impacting you or affecting you lately.
Yeah, and the more you do that improv, or the more I do it, or whomever's doing it does it, a lot of people report this, it allows me to think in a way that I don't think in the traditional way. It allows me to think in a very productive, illogical way.
Yes, I love that. Productive, illogical.
And that productive, illogical is the core of what makes something move in the direction that might be called artistic or art, maybe not. But if you're like just working in that direction and producing from that imaginative, stormy place, stuff happens.
I think it's as essential as play is to the brain. You know, they say you actually learn at a faster pace when it's put in the form of play. It takes someone 6 or 7 or 8 more times to do something in a traditional context, whereas if you do it in the place of play, it's actually learned in 1 or 2 instances. I do think that improvisation is a piece of that puzzle of play, and that it's so essential for keeping our brains well maintained, brain maintenance.
The play cues the whole body to engage, and people tend to forget their brain is in their body.
Yes, exactly.
It's not like you get away from it. You don't, oh, excuse me, I'm going to do some art now, so I'll leave my brain at home.
Yes, exactly.
I'm going to walk around with no brain in my head. When you engage the imaginative process, the brain loves the soft, misty rain on that garden that I referenced, and the seeds grow from that.
It's this building process, especially when you're across from someone who's super open and wonderful at doing something improvisational themselves. Feeds. Yeah, it becomes something. It becomes something more. It becomes something greater.
And so we're almost time to say goodbye because we're getting close to our time together. For those of you listening to this exchange Cameron and I have had, we've known each other a long time, so we feel comfortable with each other. This is the work. This is what we do when we want to make something meaningful happen in our lives. We are not floating out there by ourselves. And when 2 people like Cameron and I get together and we just let this unfold however it unfolds, a messy sort of romp between 2 friends. And yet I can tell you, for me, it is these kind of exchanges. That's what gives me the freedom to keep going to the next day. And Cameron, I'll just let you close with a few reflections around that so we can say goodbye on your voice.
Sure. I agree with you, man. This is the lifeblood. I can't stress enough, at least in my experience, just how much community and good community and people who encourage you in what you're doing and what you want to do and your hopes and your dreams, as well as what you go through day to day to day. I love hearing the people you have on here, Navé. I'm honored to be one of them. And I'm super grateful for this time with you and the time to play with you and the time to just catch up a little bit, man. It's always great. It's always great to hang out with you and talk with you for a bit.
Yeah, it really is. And also, just before we go, I want to circle back around and say that you and I both have the Leaf Global Arts Experience, the Leaf Festival.
Yes, we
to
do.
thank for this life that we're able to live and enjoy. Leaf Global Arts, it's a terrific community, and it has sown so many seeds. And you and I are just two little flowers growing in the field amongst many.
Truly, they do a lot of great work all over the world, here as well. So much incredible cross-cultural discoveries. It's one of my favorite things to remember is how much good they're still doing in the world.
They sure are. And I'm so grateful for all of that. And I'm grateful for our conversation, my friend. And we can do more of this later down the line, I hope.
Let's do it. Great talking to you, Navé.
And there you go, my friends. Thus concludes my conversation with Cameron Gregg. I hope you enjoyed it. Cameron and I did a jump in the conversation. We started with one line of dialogue, and the jump that Cameron and I developed, it was around a job that he was participating in, trying to work his way through the ideas of what to do next as I grow older and I'm not able to do the heavy lifting jobs I once did when I was young, some version of that. I've been doing these jumps for quite a while in workshops, and a few years ago in Paris, I recorded one. Don't know why I did that. I had a recorder. I thought, well, why not mic it up and record it? So I did. So what I'd like to do now is play that jump for you. Sarah and Lynn are the two participants. Lynn is the older character. Sarah is the younger character. And the whole scene takes place on a beach. And keep in mind, as you listen to this mini play, it's an off-the-cuff response from two people based on one line. So here you go.
It's so beautiful to see the sun go down, don't you think?
Yeah, really.
Do you like it when it comes up as well?
I'm never here when it comes up. I only ever come to watch it go down.
Do you? I stay here all the time. I basically live here.
You do?
What do you do?
When you're here all the time?
I just watch everything.
What do you see?
Up and down, back and forth. Yeah, it's a bit like that, isn't it?
Yeah. I haven't seen you here before, though.
Well, no, I kind of stay outside if possible. You know, just if it was so warm today, I felt like I could be a little less ashamed about what it looks like to be here all the time.
You know about that, huh? What it's like all the time? I've often wondered about that.
I don't think I really know anything. I don't have a choice.
Yeah. Hard to have choices, really, when it's like that. It's kind of nice to know the sun sets, really. Disappears, and yeah, this time it disappeared. I don't know about you, but this time it disappeared.
Why do you come here by yourself?
Been coming here for a little time, Scott, but I've never seen you.
Well, can you answer me, though? Can you tell me why you come by yourself?
I guess I'm old now, and not a whole lot of places to go. You? What about you?
But you didn't answer me, though. Party's the question. Like, why do you let me answer the question? What was your question? What do you say by yourself?
Did I say I came by myself?
You said you came because you were old now, but that doesn't explain why you came by yourself.
No, it doesn't, does it? No, it doesn't. It doesn't explain anything, does it?
Mm-mm.
I never wanted to get old. I didn't want to. And it doesn't explain anything, does it?
Well,
To know. Tell me about you. Tell me about you. Tell me about what it's like here every day. every day.
Yeah, but that's the thing. I'm here every day, and I don't want to talk about what I do here every day because I do it every day, and you're new, and I want to know about you, and I want to know why you're by yourself, and I want to know how you got old. Old just happened, and I lost people on the way. And somehow I got here. And I'm really pleased to see you. It's nice. What's your name? Does it matter, really? Yes, it does. It does. I'd like to know your name. I'd really like to know your name. But you're old and you'll forget anyway. Because you've come so many times and you've looked at me and you didn't see me anyway. Yeah. I think I've forgotten about looking. You always look really good, though. You always stand so tall and poised, like an ex-ballerina. Although I've never, ever really seen a ballerina dance. But you always look like you're having a good time, even though you're by yourself. I think you'd have a better time if you weren't by yourself. I used to dance. You kind of dance. I was tango dance. Bendy. Yeah. Yeah, I was. You didn't dance tango by yourself, did you? No, I had. Rodrigo was my partner. Did you lose him too? Yeah. Did he move too fast for you? No, he died. No. So he moved too slow again. He died. You don't know about dying, do you? You're too young. Yeah. Maybe you're right, but I know about dying. Sitting here and just watching everything and never participating, just watching and observing and kind of dying all the time. You, young lady, should get yourself together. When you're old enough to know about dying, you can sit there and say you know something about not going anywhere. It's okay. I would ask you for advice, but I don't think you have any advice to give. I think you just want me to go do it. Or maybe I'll see it tomorrow. Yeah. Like the sun sets again. Or you could try to come at sunrise instead. Sunrise is not where I am. Okay. Well, then I'll see you when the sun sets. In the sunset, you'll see me. Good. Try to remember me.
And so there you go, a jump between Sarah and Lynn. I was amazed when I first recorded that in Paris, how well they did. It was almost as if they had written the play and were acting it out. It's unusual to see something like that, so that's why I wanted to share that with you. The sound underneath, the waves, I recorded that at Stanley Beach in Hong Kong, outside of Hong Kong, and the piece that I'm working on now, putting together in Taos. So I keep moving around the world a little bit, doing what I do. So thank you for tuning in. I really appreciate you listening to everything we had to say. And on that note, I'd like to say thank you for listening to Twice 5 Miles Radio, fertile ground for conversations worth listening to and remembering. I'm your host, James Navé, always airing first on WPVM-LP Asheville, 103.7, and streaming online, WPVMFM.org. the voice of Asheville, heard all over the world, and on other community radio stations like KCEI, Cultural Energy Radio, coming out of Taos, New Mexico. Thank you, Walter Parks, for our theme song. WalterParks.com for more on Walter's music. Davine Dial, thanks for managing WPVM-FM on Wall Street in downtown Asheville. Robin Collier, the same for you in Taos, New Mexico. Thank you for managing KCEI, Cultural Energy Radio. If you'd like to reach out to me, Navé at jamesnavé.com. It's a great place to look. I would love to hear from you. I'd like to also remind you that we are sponsored by the Imaginative Storm Writing Project. If you'd like to improve your writing chops, get some more ink on the page, and enjoy yourself while you do it, imaginativestorm.com is a great resource for figuring out how to get that process moving. So with that in mind, I would like to just say once again, keeping that process moving, thank you for tuning in. And hey, maybe I'll see you somewhere out there in that big wide world, and we'll catch each other on the turnaround before the next time you visit this show. However it happens, stay well and lean into whatever it is you're doing out there in that big wide world you're doing it in.